you please share your story with us? Your story.
My story.
Your story.
Yeah. My name is Izzy, Izzy Arbeiter. I was born in Poland in a city called Plock, P-L-O-C-K. My mother said that she has a basketball team. You can see the picture on the wall, 5 boys. I was the middle one, of course, the best looking one. And we were a happy family, 5 boys, you know. There were arguments or fights between us, the boys, but that was at home. But if a stranger would start with one of the boys, he had to deal with 5. And you see the little one there, 7 years old, when he got murdered in Treblinka. He couldn't reach up to the fellow that we were fighting with, so he kicked him in the legs. It was funny. But everything was all right. You know, Poland wasn't the richest country in the world. My father was a tailor, custom tailor. He might make custom clothes. And Poland, there was a lot of Jewish people, there was a lot of Jewish communities. But we were happy. We were living in a 2-room apartment that was middle class. So one of the rooms was the kitchen, my father's tailor shop, in the dining room. That was one of the rooms. The second room was the bedroom for 7 people. And the office for my father to deal with the customers. So you can imagine 7 people sleeping in one room. We were sleeping 4 in one bed, 2 to the head and 2 from the other side. But this was life in Poland before the war. We didn't know that they're better. We heard about America. And the saying about America was there is money laying in the street. You just got to know how to pick it up. So I was very anxious to get there. And I was practicing how to pick up money from the street. And that was going on until September 1st, 1939, when the Germans attacked Poland. The city of Plock was located, or still is located, 90 kilometers from the German border, which is 90 kilometers. It took the German army 3 days to enter Poland, to enter the city of Plock in other parts of Poland. Poland capitulated after about 4 weeks. So that was September 1939. In November 1939, a ghetto was established, and all the Jewish people of the city, which was 10,000 strong, were ordered to live in a certain section of the city. It was called the Jewish Ghetto. We were ordered to wear the yellow Star of David. I'm sure you have probably seen that before. We could not leave the ghetto. You were allowed to leave only if you went to work. The only place of work was for the Germans. Food was rationed. Only those that went to work for the Germans got a ration card, which was getting smaller and smaller every time. There were certain things that were not on the ration card at all, like butter, sugar, meat. Bread was free. I mean, we could buy bread, we could buy potatoes, things of that nature. But so life wasn't as happy as it was before. in Poland, going back a little. Like I said, we were not rich. Poland wasn't a rich country, but we were happy. The Jewish people were living all in one area. It was a happy life. We didn't know any better. There were better places to live, but we didn't know, and so we were satisfied with that. Like I said, in November of 1939, the ghetto was established. Only those that worked for the Germans were allowed to leave the ghetto. Leaving the ghetto was without a permit was very strongly punished, and sometimes even with the death penalty. It didn't take very much for a Jew to do something according to the Germans wrong for them to shoot that person or hang him. The people that were accused of doing something wrong to a German. As a matter of fact, I was in 1939 still, when we were living in the ghetto. All of a sudden came out a lie that a German soldier, a drunk German soldier, got lost in the Jewish ghetto, and he got beaten up there by the Jews, which was not true. And therefore, they ordered 25 Jews from the ghetto to pick out, and they were committed to that. They were hung in the ghetto for the others to see. And like they were saying, this is what's going to happen if you do harm to the Germans. At the beginning, the German that came in was the regular army, calling it the Wehrmacht. But this was the frontline troops, and they would just keep going forward. Right behind them came the Besatzung, the occupation forces, consisting of the Gestapo. I'm sure you know what the Gestapo was. And all different kinds of police units. And they brought with them the Nuremberg laws, which were already employed in Germany. The Nuremberg laws strengthened the laws that were existing by the local police in the ghettos. And it was getting more stronger. People were being picked up from the street. People disappeared, and they were sent away. You never see them again. People were beating up, tortured, and so forth. And so it was getting the laws in the ghetto were getting stronger and stronger every time. Plots, like I mentioned before, were 90 kilometers from the German border. Because of that, the area around where we were living, which was called Mazovshe, was incorporated into the Third Reich. And therefore it was declared Judenrein, or free of Jews. The order came in February of 1941 that all the Jews from the ghetto, in the middle of the night, without any prior warning, the SS units came into the ghetto and ordered all the Jews out from the ghetto. And they gave us 15 minutes to take whatever you could with you. So imagine that there's families that are probably living there from one generation to the other. And they were giving 15 minutes to leave everything behind and take only what they could. What do you do in a situation like that? First, you try to get a loaf of bread or something to eat, and everything else stays. Of course, the Polish population, by and large, was very anti-Semitic. And during that occasion, they couldn't wait the minutes for the Jews to be taken out of the ghetto. so they could go in and rob the houses, get in with the Jews for living. And they eventually got the area in the ghetto where the Jews were living, were given to the Poles. And we were shipped to East Prussia, to the first camp in 1941. It was called, it was East Prussia. Solda was the name of the camp. Over there, we got the first taste of what it is to live under the Nazis. Come and get and go from the trucks and the buses and whatever, we had to run through a cordon, a very narrow place. And on each side were staying SS men and Poles with sticks, with baseball bats, and they were hitting us as we were running along. Those that got through in good shape were placed in barracks that belonged before to the military barrack. There was nothing there except a little straw on the floor. We were still intact, the whole family, and to start the punishment of the Jews, or to show what they can do, they closed the toilets were closed up. In the middle of the camp, they would they forced us to dig a hole like this here. And this was the toilet. Whatever you had to do, man or women, you were staying on top of the hill and doing what you had to do. So imagine, we're still civilized people. We're being chased out from our homes. In our homes, we were living a civilized life. Although we were tortured, we were murdered, it was bad. But here, you got to stay if you got to go in the middle of the day. This is where you're going. Men, women, children. So that was terrible. And the barrack, of course, like I said, there was just a little straw. So that's where we were sleeping, on that straw. Thank God we wasn't there too long. We were shipped out from there after about 2 or 3 weeks to deep into Poland in a town called Strachowice. In Strachowice was already a ghetto, was a very poor area of Poland. They were people living, when we in Plock were living in 2-room apartments. There were a lot of people that had a 1-room apartment in the ghetto because it was a small town and they had to get together the people and place them in that ghetto. I remember there was a shoemaker called Yaakov Mendel, and he had one room, wasn't much bigger than this one here, and had a little shop where he was fixing shoes, and there was one bed. He had 7 children, and the saying was, when he needed a part to fix a pair of shoes for a customer, he was trying to reach under the bed, and he grabbed the kid by the legs and pulled it out because they were all over the place there. And it was there the situation was getting very serious. There was an ammunition factory before the war. The Poles had their ammunition factory. So now, of course, the Germans took it over, and they continued to produce ammunition that they needed for their army, but they also needed slaves. So we were the slaves, and we were taken to work in the ammunition factory. I was assigned to work at the artillery shells. I was, in 1939, I was 14 years old. And think about it. At the age of 14, under the Nazis, I was declared a slave. condemned to death for the only crime I have committed, because I was born to Jewish parents. And that was my life from there on, a 14-year-old slave condemned to death. So we were placed there in Starowitz, and in the beginning there was the factory, and we could go home to our families. We got a room with another family that had 2 rooms. So they forced to give up 1 room to my family, and they moved into another family. I don't think whether you married, whether you had families, but think what I'm going to say. It was difficult enough to take a family of 7, place them, somebody else had to give up a room from their 2 rooms, and just have other people living there. But the worst thing was for the 2 women to share the kitchen. Can you imagine? Can you just imagine whether it's your mothers or your grandmothers or whatever, have to share, that the people that live there, the woman that lives there, have to share the kitchen with my mother. Bad enough, they didn't like us. They didn't invite us. They didn't want us to be there. But my mother had to share. She had to share the kitchen with my mother. And let me tell you, there was no electric heating. There was no electric kitchen. It was coal and wood. That's what it was. And we didn't have any pots or anything. So we had to use their dishes and everything for them. So it was terrible. We were assigned to live there by the JCRC, not the ones from Boston. It was called the Jewish Community Council. When we arrived there, we had to register to get what's called a Lebensmittel card, a ration card. If you didn't register for work, you didn't get a ration card. So with that ration card, those that were working, got that whatever was on the ration in the stores too that can be bought. Again, nothing luxury. It was just enough to survive for a couple of days. Because then in 1941, and I'm sure you heard about it, the Wannsee Conference. The Wannsee Conference was in Berlin, was a villa that was owned by rich Jews before. They were sent out to a concentration camp before the German Jews was sent out before us. And under the direction of Himmler, which got orders from Hitler, a group of SS men and high-ranking Nazi were placed in that conference room, and after 5 days of drinking, and this is my interpretation for it now, a bunch of drunken Nazis were decided the fate of 11 million Jewish people that were living in Europe at the time. The plan that was worked out by them was those Jewish people that live under the occupation of the Germans will be exterminated. And the other 6 million that live in the unoccupied area, when the German army moves forward and occupies those territory, they will also come under those laws. And beginning in 1942, they started to, there was set up special SS unit that were coming into the ghettos, taking out the Jewish people, and taken to the concentration camps. You must keep in mind that there were 3 different kind of camps. One was the slave labor camps, people that were taken out from the ghettos and forced to perform slave labor. The second one was cut rations with slave labor, with hard work. So it was 12-hour shifts to work and very little food. The third one was the extermination in the gas chambers, in the certain concentration camps that were built gas chambers. That was 6 camps. The first one was in a place called Auschwitz. The Germans changed it to Auschwitz. Before the war is a Polish cavalry camp where the Polish army were practicing and staying there. And then the Germans turned into a prison for Polish prisoners of war. In 1942, beginning of 1942, Himmler came there to visit that, and he liked what he saw, a prison, a camp, and Polish prisoners of war, and he ordered that nearby another camp should be built, which was called Auschwitz II. Auschwitz I and Auschwitz II. The other one was only 3 kilometers apart. You get now every year, you got the March of the Living, the people that are coming to Auschwitz and then walking the 3 kilometers to Birkenau. Because in Birkenau, that was the new camp, and that's where the gas chambers were placed. There were 5 gas chambers in Auschwitz. Auschwitz-Birkenau, actually, which was the same thing, but it was called Auschwitz-Birkenau. In Birkenau, they built, on the Himmler's orders, 5 gas chambers and crematoriums. The first one, there was a bunker where the Polish military that was training there was keeping their supplies. So now they took that out, they closed the windows, they made a door from a steel door in a little hole that you can look in there and see what's happening. And that's when they started to experiment with their gassing. And the first one that were actually killed there were the Russian prisoners of war. At that time, before that, Himmler brought some chemists from a company that produces chemistry,
Chemicals?
Chemicals, right, thank you.
Yeah.
And it was Cyclone B, that it was used before on killing mice and rats. And so they suggested that if it can kill human things, it probably kill human beings too. And so they tried in that little gas chamber, which was now turned like a gas chamber, and they built nearby a crematorium where they can build ovens with a big chimney in an oven where they could burn their bodies. It's now 80 years since I left the place with those tall chimneys. But whenever I drive by or go by someplace and I see factories with tall chimneys, I get the shudders. And to me, in myself, I say, is that something where we're going to wind up? But of course, they were here in America. But just to say that it never got out from the system, seeing those chimneys when we were in Auschwitz-Birkenau, burn day and night. The smell, when I was in Auschwitz in 1944, there were 10,000 people. Imagine 10,000. A factory for the destroying, for murdering of people. Every day, 10,000 Jews were brought in by trains, and open cattle trains, and gassed and burned in the crematoriums. Himmler's orders, the biggest one could hold 2,000 people at once. The others were 1,000, 1,500, but the biggest was 2,000 people at once. And so this way they can exterminate 10,000 people a day. The gas chambers could, in 15 minutes, kill a full room with people. It was just up to us to bring the bodies out, bring them up to the crematoriums, where, again, Jewish people, prisoners, were working at the ovens and burned the bodies. The gas chambers couldn't murder more people than that, but the crematoriums couldn't burn the bodies that fast. So they built outside ditches with crates. They put crates on top of it, and they started to burn additional people that didn't catch up with the gas chambers. And so they would put 3 people at the crates at one, but there were several ditches. And that was although it was very bad and terrible and horrible to see those people come as we came with the train in the selection by Dr. Mengeles and by other doctors. And they were selected into 2 groups. One was to the left, one was to the right. You didn't know which one is which, because Mengele didn't say anything. He was just pointing with the finger left. You were walking by him, and he was just pointing left or right, left or right. And when the group was worked out, we didn't know which way this group is going or where this group is going. The group that I was in, my brothers, the next day didn't see the people that were placed on the left side. But we found out afterwards that they went straight to the gas chambers. We were taken to the right, although we didn't know which is where. And we were placed on the Gypsy Camp.
Yeah.
Sure, you must have heard about the Gypsies. The Gypsies had a separate camp all by themselves. They were taken to Auschwitz before the Jews did. And they were living there with the families, and they were allowed to take everything with them. Dogs, horses, whole families. But then one night while we were brought in and put in the guest and the barracks on the left side, they were empty. On the right side, the Gypsies were living. And so during the night, we had a lot of noise. The Sonderkommando, sure you know what the Sonderkommando was. It was a Jewish special unit that was picked out to work the gas chambers and the crematoriums. It was mostly, I'd say 99% Jewish people in the Sonderkommando. And the SS came with the big trucks, and they just took the Gypsies out, the whole families, just as it is, and took them straight down to the gas chambers and gassed them, liquidated them. And so we were living on the Gypsy Camp for a little while. And this is where I started to learn about life in Auschwitz, what it was. It was a tragic thing. a lot of people, and I'm sure you'll probably ask me too, how did you survive? I tell you briefly, you had to take chances, you had to be smart, and you had to have help. I had all three. Being on the Gypsy Camp, I don't know whether you know the layout of Auschwitz. It's called a camp, but it's actually an area which you see over here that goes this way. And there were barracks on each side. There were 31 barracks in each were called the camp, but it was all one camp, Auschwitz. On the other side, on the left side, were the men's camp, people, only men that were going to work every day. On the other side of the Gypsy Camp was what they called the hospital. The hospital was for people that didn't go to work, that got sick. They were placed there, and they could live a day or two or whatever. And this was the next place to the death camp, to the area there called Brzezinki, where the people were gassed and cremated. I noticed, I was with two of my brothers, that the people from the men's camp that were working, coming back from work, especially the Sonderkommando and the Canada, would come to the fence and throwing over through the fence some bread, if you knew somebody. I didn't know anybody, but I saw that man is coming every day. A man is coming there every day into the camp, to the Gypsy Camp, and picking out men that he takes over the other side for work that is so capable and professional. So I went to my two brothers and said, see, there's a man in civilian clothes coming here every day. I see him, he picks out a group of men and takes it over. I said, when he comes next day, I'm going to see what he's doing. So next day, the man comes and he starts picking people. So he's looking for auto mechanics. So I go to my two brothers that were staying alone on the side, and I says he's looking for auto mechanics. So we're going to go over and register. And my brother says, are you insane? You're auto mechanics? In our city of Plotsk, if you saw a car go through the streets, everybody opened the windows and looked out what this is. And here we're going to be auto mechanics. He says, they kill us, they'll shoot us. I says, look, they might shoot us, but at least I'll die on a full stomach, because over there you get food. Over here we'll die starving, a skeleton. Over there you will die on a full stomach. So I go over to this man, and I take the two brothers, and they're afraid to get too close to me. So they're a little in the back, and they say, yeah, we three are auto mechanics. He looks at us. My younger brother is 2 years younger. I think he must have been 14 at that time. I was 16. And my other brother was 2 years older. He looked at the three of us, and he tapped me on the shoulder and says, you must be good mechanics, good auto mechanics. Oh, I said, sure. We can fix all kind of autos. He says, okay, come here. He got a group of us, and we went over to the men's side. And right away you got a soup, but now you got a thick soup. Here you got a watery soup. Over there you got a soup, what we said, that you could the spoon stick in and it'll remain standing. Mm-hmm. You know, that was a thick soup. And so I says to my brother, see, at least now we're not hungry. What's going to happen next, we'll see. Now we got numbers. I'm sure you've seen the numbers on the sleeve. Mine is A18,651. And so we got the numbers. From there, we take into a separate part of the camp, the barracks, where it was the shower room. You ordered to go in and dress, and we placed in a barrack, and we see things hanging down from the ceiling. By now, we knew what's happening to the people, to the other people, that there is gas comes out from the ceiling. And we went in and we saw what's hanging down from the ceiling. And of course, now the barrack, the doors were closed, and we don't know what it is. Whether it is, they say you're gonna get a shower now. Whether we get a shower with water or a shower with gas. So you could see a room full of men, and staying, everybody looking up to the sugar and shaking and looking up in the ceiling, what's going to come. And then all of a sudden, the thing opens up and water comes out, cold water. You should have been there and see that screaming and the crying and hugging, a bunch of naked men hugging each other because water came out, not gas. And before, when we came in, they told us to undress and tie up the clothes, because when you come out, you'll get back your own clothes. It wasn't so. When we came out from the other door after we got the cold shower, to get the clothes, you have people that it was called the bekleidung, the clothing room. And there were also prisoners working, and they would throw it at you. A pair of pants, a jacket, that's all you get. If you're lucky, you little clothes, but otherwise you were short. You got a long pair of pants. If you're high, if you're tall, you got a short pair of pants. Not that they picked, they just, from a pile, they just picked out and throw it. Next. And then from there, you were assigned to work. I was assigned to a dismantling place. A dismantling place was a large area right outside the fence of the camp, where platforms were coming every day, open train platforms with airplanes on them. It was airplanes that were shot down from the front lines. It was Americans, British, German, Russians, people you see sometimes on the photos on the television, how airplanes that take them down. Some just burst in flames. Others would lose a wheel or a wing. But the main things what they were looking for is for the gasoline. Some that didn't explode had gasoline in them, and the dashboards. For that they have special men, were called Meister, specialists, Germans, that were taken out to the dashboard and trying to find which are damaged and good parts, so that they took it off and it was shipped to Germany, to the factories where they were building airplanes. I was given a barrel and a hose and put me to an airplane that was damaged on one side, but it was outside, and they said to sieve out the gasoline because the Germans were in great need of gas. And first of all, I wasn't used to that because you get the fumes from the gasoline, and that makes you drunk or makes you dizzy. But I had no choice. If you were staying, it didn't work, you got a very strong beating. but I didn't do it very much because of big Russia. There was Russians working there, Russians prisoners of war. A big Russian comes over to me and said, "Hey, what are you doing? That's my job. You give me this. You go there." I was happy to give him. They were drinking that stuff. There was no gas, there was no vodka, but that was alcohol. So I was happy to give it to them, and I was assigned to the platform. After the good parts were taken away, and then it was cut, the aluminum, and put back on trains and shipped to the factories, to dismantling factories. So I was assigned to that, and I started to work with the big Russian. I was a little skinny guy, and it was the Russians, big guys, prisoners of war. And so when we came back at night to the camp, I said to myself, I'm not going to live there very long. That's hard, carrying, schlepping, lifting pieces of aluminum. So I says, I got to take a chance. During the day, just about before we checking in, just before we going back to the camp, I see an SS woman. There were SS men and SS woman. I see an SS woman walking, and with her nearby walks a civilian, a girl, dressed in a nice blue skirt and a jacket and a white blouse with a collar all over the blue. And I says, look at this girl. She must be somebody walking with an SS woman and all dressed up so nice. And the closer she walked towards where I was staying, the familiar says, my God, I know this girl. This girl is Rachel. Rachel Tippett. I went to school with her. She lived in Plotzk next door to ours. And I says, oh my God, if she is working with the SS woman, maybe she can help me. And so I'm kind of climbing. I'm trying to, I says, maybe when they get very close, I can jump out and talk to her. And she recognized me. And so she goes like this. The SS woman should see to me to stay, not to get out, to stay. They assume I could have been shot because sometimes they don't interpret it that we're trying to run, either to run away or to attack the SS woman or a sex man. And so she goes like that, and as she walking by near the ditch, she went like this. And they passed by, and I said, see, my God, my luck. I know her. Rachel is she could help me. Nothing, and she just kept walking. But it didn't take long. About 10 minutes later, I say, this girl, Rachel, and another girl are running towards where I'm working. They run by near the ditch, and one throws a loaf of bread into the ditch to me, and she says, when you come back to the camp, go to the Sonderkommando. You know what the Sonderkommando is? Sonderkommando is the people that were working the gas chambers, the crematoriums. Go to the gas chambers. Your cousin, Elek Malenka, is working in the Sonderkommando. And the Sonderkommando had everything, because when the transports arriving from the people, the Germans were taking but the good stuff. When a transporter come, and especially from the rich countries, from France, from Denmark, from Hungary, they were bringing wine and canned goods. The bread, they don't want to bother with the dirty bread. So the Sonderkommando took it. It was illegal, but they looked away for that. And so she says, when you could come back, you run to the Sonderkommando. your cousin, Alec Malenka, is working there. Well, I couldn't wait for the group to go back to the, come back to the barrack, to the camp. The Sonderkommando was separated from all the other people in Barrack 10 because they didn't want that they should share what they do during the day to the other people that might come out on the outside. So I went in, and when I came in, when we came back from work, we were getting a slice of bread and a little watery soup. I didn't want the soup. I didn't want the piece of bread. I want to get around to Sonderkommando, where my cousin was, because I knew that the Sonderkommando had plenty of food. So I came to the door. So they were separated from the rest of the people. And there was a door. Near the door was staying a couple. You know what a couple is? You know what a couple was staying there with a baseball bat. So I go over to him, and I say, "Excuse me, I don't want to say you." I say, "Excuse me, sir. My cousin is inside. My cousin is Alec Malenka. I would like to see him." He says, "Oh, yeah, you got a cousin in there?" And he picked up that baseball bat and he hit me over the head, over the back. I turned around, I ran, and he was chasing me and kept hitting me. Believe me, it didn't hurt so much, the beating that I got with the baseball bat, that the pain that I won't be able to see my cousin, that he could help me and give me food. But I'm crying, but I'm not going away from there. Then, a few minutes later, 2 people come out from there in civilian clothes. All the prisoners were wearing, the striped uniforms. These 2 come out of them. And one is a big guy. And so I go over to them as I'm crying, and I say again, "Excuse me." And I was crying. I says, "My cousin, Alec Malenka, is here. I would like to see him." He says to me, "Alec Malenka is your cousin?" I said, "Yes." So he grabs me like this, see? And he holds me and he says to the other fella, "Go in there and bring out Alec. I want to see whether he's telling the truth or not. If you're lying, if you're making up, then I'll kill you." I says, "Yes," and I says, "Yes, I'm crying. Yes, if it's Alec." Well, the other fella went in, and he comes out with 2 men. 1 went in, 3 coming out now. This tall guy was a couple. The Sonderkommando was a big man, was a big thing. And 3 of them come out. And this big guy that holds me says, "All right, show me which one is Alec Malenka." And I'm crying, and I says, I never saw him. He was from a different city, but I knew that we have relatives in the other city in Dobrzhin, and he maybe, and I know about the family. And so one of those other 2 people says to me, "What did you say is the man that you're looking for?" I says, "Alec Malenka." I says, "Do you know Alec Malenka's father?" I says, "Yeah, I know my father. His name is Chaim, his wife, and the names of the family. What are they doing? They had a bakery in Dobrzhin and so forth." After a while, he says to that couple, he knows. He's all right. And so now he takes me over, and he takes me in. Now the guy that was hit me, standing at the door, when he see them being led in by important people, he doesn't say nothing. My cousin takes me on his bunk, listen to this, and he picks up the straw sack, and there is a grocery store underneath his straw sack. He says, see this? When we come home from work, from the crematoriums, from the gas chambers, we're smuggling in things. And so here it is. So he says, right away he gave me food. I ate, and I said I got 2 brothers out. He gave me bread for them also. And now he says, where did you work today? What commando did you come with? And I told him the street bar, the highway bars. He says, you're not going there anymore. You're going to work with the sewer cleaners. Because he had a sister on the women's camp. And the sewer cleaners there were no sewers, it was toilets. And so we were assigned to clean the toilets. So he says, looked up the capo for this group, for this commander, bribed him, and he said, in the morning you wind up over here in my group. And over there came they in. My cousin told me where my cousin, the girl, works, where she is. She is working in the washroom. She's hiding. He pays for her because they had plenty money, gold dollars, what they found, what people were bringing. And of course, so he says, you're going to be the contact between me and my sister. And so, of course, when my cousin, the girl, saw me, she just knew my name, and my name was Rulek in Poland. And she had a brother by the same name. And so she was very happy and took me in right there where they were working with a few girls that had privileges in the washroom. And from now on, you'll be coming here. And so there was a group of 12. We had a roll wagon, and it was a roll wagon, barrel-shaped, like a bottle. That's the wagon, the roll wagon. And we were 12 people. There were 3 on this side and 3 over here pulling, and there were 6 in the back pushing. So I was among the pushers. We had a long stick with a on bell attached like a bucket attached over here, a small one, and we came wherever there was a toilet, we took out the vase, put it in the bell. There was a draw door, so you could pull it out, and there was one in the back. In the back, you pulled it up. When we went through collecting the vase, there were 2 places that we brought it. Either at the fields that the Germans took away from the Polish farmers, and they used this as fertilizer. It was the season that it was not needed in the fields, so there was a big cesspool, a huge cesspool, probably as big as this backyard here. And so there now I had plenty of food, protection, because my cousin paid the couple from that group to take care of me. It was a privileged group. Every time we were going out, so now me, before whether I was starving for a piece of bread, I had here bread to give away. Because in what we did in that battle, we did build a wire, see, inside to hang inside. With every group that was going out to work, there was one or two, depending on the size of the group, was SS-men walking with them. With us, they don't want to go. Why? The area around the bell isn't, the smell isn't too good. They didn't want to get by in case, spill out and get on their uniforms. So they let us go. As long in the morning, the couple had the report at the gate. Couple so-and-so with 12 people leaving for work, and when we come back, the same thing. Now, other groups were, what they call, they check them, see whether they're not bringing any contraband, any smuggling thing in. With us, they don't get to the bell. The couple went to the window and reported. I said, get in again. They were afraid that they might get dirty. So for us, it was good. We brought in every day, we smuggled in. One day, the girl that I knew from the other camp said to me, I need a pair of shoes. Could you organize a pair of shoes for me? And I was going every day in the crematorium, in the guest chambers. And so they could see if there a transport came, there was a pile, shoes as high as the building. And there was a pile with clothing. And so I said to my cousin that was working there, he says, I need a pair of shoes for somebody. He says, pick out a pair of shoes. So I picked up a nice pair of shoes and I brought it, put it on her or her bunks, which I did every day for bread also. And in the women's barrack, just like in the men's barrack, was a supervisor, also a prisoner, a woman. She's in charge of a section. So if I would put the bread on her bunk, it wouldn't last there 5 minutes. It would have been ripped apart. But she was a supervisor, and I had to share and give her some bread too. And so she watched that when Anna comes home, the bread is there for her. Why? Because she is going to get her portion too. And so this way, it worked. Beautiful. It worked very good. So after the war, people that were special groups or anybody, if you caught a couple or somebody that did harm in the camps to other people, stealing food, beating, things like that, they got repaid for it. If you would hear in a place and someplace, oh, a couple, that person would get a very bad payoff.
Yeah.
So here, Emily knows. I was invited every year to Germany to speak in Germany. So that must have been about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm in Germany, and I'm invited. The group, there was a few couples that were in Germany, and we were invited to a German family for dinner. They made a dinner for a few Holocaust survivors that came to Germany. I come into a house, and the minute I open the door, there's a man sitting there in a wheelchair, and he sees me, and he looks at me, and he goes, You're alive? You know what that meant? A death penalty right away. The way he screamed and said, you, to the rest of the people, whether it was in that room or any place else, meant that this person did wrong to other prisoners. And that's why either he got a beating, a bad beating, or he could have been killed there. So I'm staying there, and I'm shivering, and I'm looking, who's going to jump on me first? Where am I going to get the first hit from who? And then it continues, says, you remember when I came to Auschwitz, you were the first one that gave me a piece of bread. You can imagine. I started to breathe. Up to this moment, I didn't breathe. I started to breathe. And I said, yes. Believe me, I didn't remember. At that moment, I was far away. But I says, yes, I remember you. I remember you came. And he starts, he gave bread to me, the first piece of bread that I got in Auschwitz. And to other people, he gave bread to people that... So everybody, like, oh yeah, how did you have bread to give away? Everybody was hungry in Auschwitz. You had bread to give away. But then I had to explain what I'm saying now. I was working at that rollwagon, filthy. The bread we got was filthy. Before we put it on the wire, we looked for a piece of newspaper, of everything to wrap around a little, make it a little cleaner. And when we came back to the camp, we opened up the top door and pulled out some of the bread. It wasn't like it's coming from the Waldorf Astoria, but hungry people eat anything. We cleaned it up, we washed it up, and everybody came know us, and the roll wagon is coming. And so you give them a piece, you give them bread, whatever you could, and they were glad to get it. They cleaned it up, like I said. It didn't smell good, it didn't taste so good, but once it went down into the stomach, it was all right. It filled up the stomach. And so this is how I was working in Auschwitz till the Russians started to move into Poland. And I was shipped out with other people from that group to Stutthof. Auschwitz was bad because people were killed in the gas chambers. Stutthof, the gas chambers, there was one gas chamber that was already shut down. As a matter of fact, there are a group of Hungarian women naked already in the gas chamber, and they were taken out from there because the order came from Berlin to stop the gassing. You thought that Auschwitz was bad. Auschwitz was good. In Stutthof, there was no work. We were just sitting outside. Stutthof is near Gdansk in Poland, near the Baltic. It's cold. It's raw. It's cold. Yesterday, if we were out yesterday, there was just a little bit of how it was there. They chased us out from the barracks 6 o'clock in the morning, and we were staying out cold with a little jacket and our pants that we got in Auschwitz, the summer uniform. So we got in a group, and it was 20, 30, 40, whatever we could. Everybody formed and bundled, bagged up, and it was called a group that we were heating each other with body heat. And then in the evening, we went in, they let us in, and we got a slice of bread, a little watery soup, but at least now we were inside. And inside, we got the bunk, and there were four people that were laying on that bunk. And then one day we were, without notice, without anything, we just put on cattle trains, and shipped out from there. We didn't know where we're going. We know what we went through, what we learned during those years. And after a few days in a cattle train, without food, just a bucket of water and a bucket as a toilet, And we were there, I think it was about 3 days from Stutthof till the trains opened up. And here we are in Germany. And not far from Stuttgart, a place called Tailfingen. They let us out from the cattle cars, and we had to walk the rest from the train station to an airfield where airplanes were stationed. We were supposed to build enlarge the airfield. It was close to the French border, and the Germans had their stationed night fighters. Number one, for the protection of the large city of Stuttgart, and secondly, to protect Germany from the airplanes that came from France. There wasn't even a barrack. They placed us in a hangar. There was no barracks. There was a little straw until they put some bunks up. Food they were bringing from a kitchen from someplace. It was a terrible thing. One was getting worse than the other. And the food, the rationing of the food, that by then the Germans didn't have enough for themselves. So, of course, we got just very, very little of it. And I was assigned to work again on the digging a ditch on the edge of the airfield. Others were cutting trees out to make everything was needed to make the plane thing bigger. Then I was transferred to a quarry. You know what a quarry is? Break stones. And you know what a machine, break up the stones, and then there's a machine, put it in there, and they break it to whatever size the builders need. Small pieces, bigger, whatever. And that's where we're working on the outside. It was bitter. It was November, December, January. It was outside, and there was no excuse for snow or rain or cold during the winter. They needed the stone at the airfield where they were building the highway. So we got to work. You came back at the night from work, and had to take off your shoes. You were wet, and tie up the shoelaces, and you use this as a pillow, because there was no pillows. There was just a few people in the bunk laying, and but again, I was lucky because we were walking from the camp in Tailfingen to the place called Royston through two villages. And although it was all Nazis, but there was still, as Anne Frank said, despite of everything, people still have a good heart, or something like that. So there was one family, just as we were walking through the streets, on the side, there was a house, the first house near the quarry, that the man was in the military, that she would put out a bundle on the side in front of the house. So I noticed what she was doing. So I was watching already. Every day when we were walking there, I was just watching where the guard is. And if the guard wasn't nearby, I just ran out, grabbed it, and kept going. One day, she took me into the kitchen and said, "Sit down, don't worry, sit down." And she gave me some leftovers from the food, from the dinner. There was a man from Stuttgart. He had a factory, built chains to airplanes. So he was working for the government. And so, but he didn't want the family in Stuttgart because Stuttgart was being built. So in the village Royston, He rented a home for the family, to bring the family over so they can stay there. Whenever he went down from the house, he had a little brown bag. So I noticed, and he just threw it there in the side. And I was watching him. And so we were getting, as a matter of fact, before the end of the war, that was already 45, he took my friend Morris Kornblit out from the camp in his car, away to Stuttgart, and they were hiding him by his sister, whose husband was in the military. And he survived the war. He died now in Philadelphia. He's living in Philadelphia. And so this was, the war was coming to an end. Before that, on the airfield came the Americans, what they called the bandits, and threw some bombs on the airfield, on the planes, destroyed the planes, destroyed the airfields. We were not needed anymore. So they shipped us to another place called Salted, closer to the Swiss border. And there the Germans were building a oil sheet factory, making the Germans, when they lost Romania, they lost the oil. They didn't have any oil. So they was producing, we're doing it here now on a large scale, oil from rocks, from shale. And so we were building the factory. And of course, the bandits came again, destroyed the factory, destroyed the American barracks. But then, Himmler, Goering used to promise Hitler. Hermann Goering was in charge of the German Luftwaffe, of the air. So he promised Hitler, if one enemy plane will cross the German border, you can call me Jaime. Jaime was a very bad name in Germany, a Jewish name. So he said to Hitler, you can call me Jaime if American planes will come here. By then, there was no German Air Force anymore. They were all destroyed. And so now, there was no more gas chambers. There were no more crematoriums. And I said, there is a little hope for us. Why? We are in the heart of Germany. There is no gas chambers here. There is no crematoriums. And the Germans will not take the chance to kill thousands of people in their homeland in front of their houses. So we have a chance here that they let us live properly, and when the Americans come, we'll be liberated. But they had other plans, and they decided to take us on the Dead March to be destroyed. We walked the first night. During the day, they didn't walk us because the airplanes could see us. So during the night, we were walking, and at night they placed us in a barn of the highway, a big barn. That replaced us in the barn, and then we had an argument. We had an argument outside. There were two groups between the guards. One group said, "We're in Germany now. The war is going to be over any day. We could hear the shooting and the artillery fire. Our homes are not far from here. We can kill them off here, and we'll go home." So they placed us in the barn. And the one group that recommended that started to put gasoline underneath around the barn, and they were gonna throw a match at it and burn us, kill us in the barn there. But there was the other group which didn't allow and says, "No, we can't do that. The Americans are very short distance from here. when they come and they'll see what we did, they'll hold us responsible. Our orders are to bring him to that place, we'll bring him there. On the second day, we came to a river. There was a bridge. Although there was no room to go, we were just walking around in circles. So they were going to take us across the river to the bridge. But when we came near the bridge, there were German engineers working underneath the bridge, placing dynamite to blow the bridge. And so that's what they said, the engineers, you cannot cross the bridge, the Americans are there, but what we can do, put them on the bridge, we'll blow the bridge, they'll fall, they'll kill him, they'll fall in the water, and you'll be able to go home. But the others said the same thing. No, the Americans will see what we did, and we'll be responsible for it. And so on the third day, after crossing the bridge, I don't know who heard about the Black Forest, Schwarzwald, the Black Forest. And so we were walking through the Black Forest. In the middle of that, the leader of the SS, of the guards, called everybody together, and he says, now he's a good man, he likes us. He says, for the first time in 5 years, we were not left alone by the Germans. They were afraid they might have run away or whatever. They didn't let us out of their eyes. Here now, they say, there's a village ahead of us. We are tired. We want to go to the village, refresh and get some food. I order you to get off the highway, sit by the wayside, and when done, we'll come back and pick you up and we'll keep walking. So we knew already what that means and what's happening. As soon as they started to walk, we took off into the forest in both ways. And there were still some people who were being shot because the military were running back from the front line. And so they were running, we were running across their lines. And so some people got shot. I got into the forest and I could run. I didn't look back or to the side. I just kept running. And as I was deep enough to be able to hide in the underbrush, there were 4 other men. So we got together and it was cold, April. So we sat down for the night again, bundle up body to body. In this way, we stayed through the night. And during the night, we heard a lot of commotion on the highway. But we didn't know what's going on there. So in the morning, one of our fellas crawled down from the forest to the highway, and he came back looking like Santa Claus with a blanket. He said there on the end of the forest is a truck overturned. He didn't know whether it was American or a French or a British. He just found a blanket there, so he put it all on the blanket, put it on his back, and he came back. We sat down, we had a fiesta, and then we went down to the highway. It was the French Free Army, de Gaulle's army. They stopped the trucks, they stopped the tanks, they put us on the trucks, and took us into the closest village. In a place I stayed in an abandoned school. The school was closed for the summer, and this was now closed. So we were staying there. They put us on there with nothing, but it looked like they had experienced prior to come here in French, because France was liberated also with the American, because with them came already a field kitchen. You know what's a field kitchen? and nurses and doctors, and the very sick were being placed in ambulances and taken to the nearest big German city and placed in the hospital. The others were taken from there into the closest villages and were placed with German families. So myself and another boy were placed with a German family, and they were ordered they had to take care of us and give us food. So for the first time in probably 5 years, I'm sleeping in a clean bed. And after a few days after a few days with the German family, which they were not happy, of course, to have us. They weren't too happy with us there, and we weren't too happy to be with them. So something had to happen. I know one morning I got up and I was screaming, I was crying. Who am I? What am I doing here? What is my name? I had no name, I had a number. In the camp I was called number, prison number so and so and so. What am I going to do? Is this going to be my future? I have no profession. I have no education. I'm not going to stay here with the Germans the rest of my life. And so I said, I'm going into the world to look for maybe somebody for my family. Where is my mother? Where is my brother? Where is my brothers? What happened to them? And so I just went out and I walked on the highway. Imagine the thinking. Here, I was already 20 years old. I was liberated on my 20th birthday, April 25th, 1945. I was born April 25th, 1925. And so I was walking, and I there wasn't see nothing. Then I saw a house and a big barn. And the barn, and it was open ajar, a little bit open. I was curious, so I went over to the door and I looked in there. And what did I see? A motorcycle. A nice motorcycle staying in there. So I was curious. I opened the door and went in and take a look. The key is still in the motorcycle. I turned the from the tank, the cover from the tank, and it's full with gasoline. I says, this must belong to a higher ranking Nazi, because Germany didn't have gasoline. Civilian population have no motorized vehicles. Everything is taken for the military. And I pulled out that motorcycle, and the only thing I knew about the motorcycle, that when it goes, but the handle goes, and then you get on it and it goes. So I tried, I did the same thing. I turned the key and I got on the motorcycle and it went in like a bronco. You know, the horse is the bronco. It threw me off. I cut my leg, I cut my beautiful pants that I was wearing. And, but I said, this is my lifeline. I'm not giving up. And so I went again on that motorcycle. The second time, it still threw me off. I go a third time. And let me tell you something. I never had a motorcycle. I was never sitting on the motorcycle. Never mind a motorcycle. I didn't have a bicycle. But I said, this is my lifeline. This can take me places. At the third time, and this is something which I can't understand. Almost 80 years, 70 odd years. I'm 95 years old. I can't figure out how the first two times It didn't do nothing. It threw me off. At the third time, I was riding on it like I was an expert, as if somebody was guiding me. I can figure out what happened. But I didn't go very far because there was the four sons of occupation. Germany had the French, the American, the British, and the Russians. So next to the French border was the American. And so they arrested me and they paid papers. I didn't have any papers. I had nothing. So they took me into Stuttgart to the headquarters. It was General Eisenhower's headquarters. Stuttgart was pretty badly damaged during the war. But there was a building, a tall building, that wasn't damaged. And so the Americans took it over and made this the General Eisenhower's headquarters. Before, it belonged to the Gestapo. It was the Gestapo's building. And so they took me up into that office, and I was sitting on one side and the two of them on the other side. They were questioning me, and I told them what I knew, that I was just liberated from a concentration camp, and I haven't got nothing. I lost my family, and I'm out looking for my family. These two that investigated, now these two were wearing fatigues, the fatigue uniforms. When they left, a man came in, a tall man, an officer, wearing an Eisenhower jacket, a green military shirt, a tie, pants with a stripe here on the leg. And he sat down and he started to ask me. And that's all I could tell. I couldn't tell anything else. There was nothing to tell. I was just liberated, and I'm out looking for my family. So he sits for a minute and he looks at me. He says, "I'll help you." The rank, I don't know. From what I know now, the ranks that I learned in America, that he was a major or a colonel, something like that. And so he said, "I'm going to help you. I'm Jewish too." And that was the biggest mistake that I made, that I didn't ask that man his name and the address in America. I would walk barefoot to California, wherever he was from, if I know where he is and who he is, for what he did for me. And so he says, "I'm going to help you." He says, "Come with me." Went to a room. He says, "Go in there, get undressed, and put your clothes here." I went in. It's a shower room, in a building, General Eisenhower's headquarters. Before it was the Gestapo headquarters. So I went in. It's a shower. The first time I took a shower, a nice warm shower. In the camp, if we got a cold shower once in 6 months or once a year, was good. So I got a nice shower. I put the clothes outside. When I opened up the door, it wasn't there. I said, "Where am I going to go? Naked?" But then a little further down, there was civilian clothes laying. And then he came and he says, put on that. The clothes that I was wearing, that I put on, they probably burned it. That's how filthy it was, covered with lice. Excuse me. It's not that I had lice. It was covered with lice. So then he took me into another room, and it was a table with a white tablecloth. The only thing, the problem was that the dish was not edible. I was trying. It was too hard to eat. Here I see there are things that says edible. That dish wasn't edible. But I can assure you there wasn't that much left in that dish. And after I got through eating, he gave me papers signed by General Eisenhower, and he says, that will take you, the war was still on. In this area, the Americans was ready, but further down, the war was still going on, because that was April 27, 28. I think the war was over April, May, or June.
I think it was June.
June 6th, wasn't it? June 6th. So he said, there's American units stationed on the highway, the forests and doorways, wherever you'll go, you'll stop, and you'll go there, and it says that they should help you with food, with gasoline, and with safety. I said, beautiful. I went and I started to go, and every place I went, I stopped, they filled it up for me, and nobody bothered me. But they said, the officer said, when you'll go down from here, you go in that street around the corner there is a Jewish committee. You go in there and you tell them that we send you, they'll help you. I did. I went in, and there was a big room, and on the wall, a big white wall, was names of the people that registered. I had to register too. My name is Arbeiter. It's with an A. I took on top, and the first name is Aaron Arbeiter, my younger brother. I stopped. I was speechless. I almost fainted. I was crying that at least one of my brothers is alive. Where is he? In another DP camp in Feldafingen, near Munich. So I'm planning to go in the morning and pick him up and bring him to me, and we'll be together. While I stay there, there's a girl comes over, and she says, aren't you, she didn't know my name, aren't you the one that you were in that camp, and there was a girl that helped you with food, you were sick? Oh, I didn't tell you how that happened, that I was sick, what happened there. And I says, yes. He says, she's alive, she survived, she's alive. She is in Bergen-Belsen. Oh, I says, I'm very happy. Are you going back there? And she says, yes, I'm going there tomorrow. So I says, would you please do me a favor? When you see this girl, please tell her that you saw me and that I'm alive, and that, as you can see, I'm all right, I'm alive. And she says, I'll do that. Later on in the afternoon, I said to myself, Izzy, you made a big mistake. That was wrong what you did. That girl did so much for you. And you have a motorcycle, you have papers, and asking somebody, the least you could do is you should go there and thank yourself. And so I checked with my secretary, my scheduling secretary. And so she said my calendar was clear for tomorrow, for the next day. So in the morning I went to Munich, picked up my brother, brought him to Stuttgart, and I went to Bergen-Belsen with the motorcycle. And I remember in Kassel, places that were destroyed, and I came to Bergen-Belsen, and there is the camp there is a fence. There's a wire fence around, and an armed man with a rifle stays near the gate, and there's a lock, the key. I came there, and the man with the rifle, I said, you can't go in, nobody can go in, nobody can go out. So I showed him the papers, orders for the signature. General Eisenhower opened the door and let me in. And there I find out where that girl, I'm not revealing yet who and where. I mean, that girl, where she is, in which room, in which barrack. And so I went there. I came in and I was very happy to see her. She was very happy to see me. Now she says, no. And we're there, we're happy, and they live in a room which it wasn't much bigger than this one here.
No, it's not.
There were 5 girls living, and there was one that was a leader, the oldest. I'm sure it's everywhere in organizations and schools and whatever. There's always a leader. And she didn't like me from the very beginning. She says, this man, he cannot stay here. No, at first we said, people couldn't go out, but people were walking in the afternoon. There was an owl. And so people were walking down there. So I said to her, would you like to go down for a walk with me or a ride on the motorcycle? She said, yes, I would go. But you see, there's 5 girls here that live in this room, and we have only 1 pair of shoes between the 5 of us. And today is not my day to wear the shoes. 5 girls, 1 pair of shoes. So today, she says, it's not my day to wear the shoes. I said, show me which girl has the shoes today. I went over, I bribed her, I begged her. She gave her the shoes. She gave her the shoes. 1 shoes size everybody. 1 size fit everybody.
Had to.
Yeah. And so we get a ride on the motorcycle, and and the people they locked up, they can't go out, and they say everybody is staying. And who is this? A civilian clothes, a motorcycle, a head, motorcycle head with glasses. Who is he?
Yeah.
What is he doing here? So then we got through riding, and then we went back to the room. And now I asked him, is there a hotel or a motel someplace where I can sleep through the night? Because tomorrow I'm out of here. I'm going to America. I'm going back to the America. I said, in America, it's still, it's good. It's still America, no matter where it is. They've got plenty of food. We're free. You can see I got a motorcycle. I can go any place I want. And you are still behind the walls, behind locked fence. So I says, tomorrow morning, I'm getting out of here, back to the American. So the girl, the oldest, says, I don't like this guy. He didn't come to say thank you to you. He came here for something else. And so I say, I didn't have to travel 1,000 kilometers for that something else. It's available in Stuttgart too. But sometimes you can get it at a discount price.
Show me. You go ahead.
So she says,
You just get out.
but still that girl
I don't like
says,
him.
"Oh, he can sleep here. He's not going to sleep. We're not going to let him." So, but the girls got together and they had a conference. They said, we can't put him outside. It's cold. He's got to sleep someplace. So finally they talked her in, and she agreed that I can sleep, but not on the bunks with the girls. I can sleep on the floor. I says, look, I slept 5 years on the plane, boots on the floor, so one more night isn't going to kill me. So I lay down on the floor, no pillow, no blanket, and she took the chair and put it near my head, and was sitting there the whole night, watching me that I shouldn't move. Thank God I had a strong bladder, and I didn't have to move. In the morning, we got up, I look out the window, my motorcycle isn't there. Somebody took it. Who can take it? There is two kind of people in the camp. Prisoners and the British. So the people say it must be only the British would have taken it. And up there is the office. You go up there and report it. I went there and the officer in charge, I showed him the papers. He right away says to the sergeant, go again, bring him the motorcycle. Now it's a new capital starts. So I says, well, I'm going. You want to go with me?
No.
You can go. If you don't want to go, I'm sorry. So now all the 5 got together, and the other 4 says, don't go with him. Don't go. He is not clear. He will use you and abuse you and then leave you.
Yeah, that's
And she
right.
took a chance, and we
That's right.
came here.
Yeah.
Now when we talk, jokingly, and I ask her, aren't you happy you came to America? You didn't go to Israel with the other girls? Because when she came in Stuttgart, we gave her a little apartment
Yeah.
in Stuttgart, and she moved there, and she was living in the same city. We used to bump into, one another. Then we started to see each other more often. Then we started to date. And then till one day I went down on both of my knees and I proposed. I said, would you marry me? And that's again, she says, before I finish the sentence, she says, yes, 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 yes. Here she says now, it took me quite a while to decide. And I say, you mean like a minute? So we have fun over it.
Yeah.
And the kids have fun, they love. And so after 73 years that we're married, and I'm still looking for those girls that told them not to go with me.
The tribunal.
Right.
Tribunal. That was,
So I ask everybody now, and I'm going to ask you too. If you come across those girls, let me know where they are.
Prove them wrong.
So I will bring them here and show the immediate family. Not everybody is there. So we have, thank God, 3 children, 3 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren.